Lead Recycling by Valunica Fayette. What are Ulabs? Ulabs are also known as used lead acid batteries. Ulabs are recyclable substance. The materials that are within the Ulabs have a commercial value. About 100% of the materials in Ulabs are able to be recycled, and there is a good infrastructure for collection and recycling. Plastics as well as electrolyte are also able to be recovered. Where are Ulabs located, you might ask? Ulabs are almost in every city in the developing world. Currently, there are Ulabs all across the North America, South America, Europe, Asia, the Middle East. So let's get into a little bit more about Ulabs and why they're beneficial and why they're not beneficial and where across the globe that they are. Ulabs are used widely on a large mass scale in parts of the world and are used for energy storage. Lead acid batteries are made with a chemical called sulfuric acid and contain large amounts of lead. This acid is extremely corrosive and is a great candidate for lead particulate. Lead is a metal with high toxicity rates and produces an adverse health outcome within the younger population. These are part of the reasons as to why lead batteries are not beneficial. So what happens when you're exposed to Ulabs? Exposure to high amounts of lead can cause damage to the brain and kidney, and it can potentially cause hearing impairment and so much more. Every vehicle that is manufactured across the globe, anywhere in the world, contains approximately 12 kilograms of lead. Approximately 96% of lead is used for the common lead acid batteries, aka batteries that go into automobiles, trucks, cars. All the cars that we drive contain lead acid batteries. Part of the issue with recycling Ulabs is that it is extremely profitable business, although it's dangerous, right? So like there's so much money that can be made from like recycling Ulabs, but because of the fact that it's still lead, it's a very dangerous situation. Major developing countries use lead acid batteries, aka Ulabs, from industrialized countries and Middle East in a way to take the lead. Right? So what's happening is that like major countries, like the US, Europe, Asia, they want the Ulabs. They need to recycle the batteries. But because we have such strict laws, they go to smaller countries that may not have as strict of laws as here in the States. So ULAB recycling and smelting operations are mostly done in urban areas with hardly any pollution control and measures of safety for their workers. AKA, it pretty much is a way for like the bigger countries with stronger laws for their citizens. This is a way for them to kind of like get the poor countries who need the money from the big countries to produce the recycling lead, because like they don't necessarily care about their smaller population and the people there, because like they just want the money, so they're willing to put themselves into kind of harm's way essentially. So for our assignment, we had to interview a few people who didn't know anything about ULabs and ask them like for a solution to the situation. Like, is recycling ULabs beneficial? And if it's not, then what can we do about it? So I interviewed Carrie, and the interview went a little something like this. Valunica, who is me. Carrie, are you familiar with what ULabs are? No, he says. What's that? I say ULabs are also known as used lead acid batteries. Do you still know what that is? Carrie's like, oh, like hard batteries? And I'm like, yes. Do you know if it's good or not? And Carrie, I assume it is because I assume it's not good because of the fact that like there's lead in it. And I'm like, correct. So like, what is a better way that you think that we can recycle these car batteries? And he says, well, like out in Long Island, it's mandatory that the lead acid batteries are recycled separately aside from like the garbage. He said, but it's kind of like still not beneficial for the simple fact that eventually they all go to the same dumping site. So now in terms of like the poorer countries, he says that maybe we should better train them or like better educate them on the dangers of it, and that because there's so much money that we should still continue using lead batteries. I guess as long as it's regulated, it's okay. With Kerry, that was interview 1. The next person I interviewed was Alex L, and he's a physical therapist. Uh, and the conversation went something like, about Unica again, who's me. How about you? Do you know what Ulabs are? And Alex says, no, not really. And I say Ulabs are the car batteries, like Carrie said. And I continue on saying, do you know what a better solution for the recycling options would be? Alex says, I guess educate the people in the countries on better ways to handle lead. And that's really the only solution he offered up. The next person I interviewed is named Sabrina, and she works for NYU Langone. And I asked her if she knew what Ulabs are, and she actually did. She said yes. It's an environmental concern. And I said, okay, so what do you think we can do about this situation? And she says, well, for starters, the bigger countries have to stop outsourcing to the smaller countries where they're taking advantage of them because of the fact that they don't have to spend as much money and they don't want to comply with the rules and regulations of the countries that they're in, this, like aka the United States. And she says, like we should stop being cheap because it's costing other people their lives because they're not educated properly. So that was Sabrina. So just to wrap up, overall, it seems like the consensus is Labs are beneficial and generate income, but it should be better regulated. Bigger countries, aka the US and UK and EU, should stop taking advantage of smaller companies. They should also start to educate the workers that are handling the lead batteries. It should be required if they do continue to use the smaller countries that there's some type of like educational process that happens with the workers in other countries as well, or else they would lose the funding or the business. Some type of regulation along those lines should be done. And that concludes my presentation.